So this video runs through the cash flow cycle. So the cash flow cycle is the cycle of money that goes around and around in your business. Now, when we think of most businesses, we don't have just one circle happening at a time. We have multiple circles happening all the time. And so it's like a wheel that has lots of wheels all going around and around. Unfortunately, there's hang-ups in every single cycle. And what we need to do is really understand our own business so that we can identify where those hang-ups are so that we can then shorten the time frame that we need for that cash flow cycle. So this cycle here that I've got, we start off with cash. There's always cash in a business. From your cash, we then, if you're a business that purchases stock, you then use that cash to buy stock. Now that stock might be materials that you're going to use in a job in the future or materials that you've got for a job that's current that you're doing right now. If you're a retailer and the stock just sits there on the shelf, then you need to make sure that the amount of time that it takes to go from the shelf through to being sold again is a really short period of time, and this is called your inventory turnover. So for businesses who carry stock, you'll purchase the stock, it'll sit on the shelf until you can sell it. In that, you might have some payment terms, so you may not have to pay for that stock up front. It may be a 7-day, 30-day, or end of month term to be able to pay for that payment. So it depends on when you buy it, how long does it take for you to actually pay that payment. Then most businesses also has work in progress component to it. So how much are you spending in man hours? So work in progress is man hours or labor hours or woman hours if you've got an all women organization. So how many hours does it take for you between when you're starting the job and when you're finishing a job? And the longer it takes, especially if you're billing after the fact, the longer it takes, the less efficient you are, and the longer it'll take for you to get paid by your customer. If you're in a traditional business where we do the work and then you invoice it later, then the longer the work in progress period of time is, then the longer you're going to have to pay staff every single pay until you get paid by that job. So we might have purchased some stock or materials. We've paid our supplier out already for that material. We're paying our staff with our wages and work in progress. Now, also in our work in progress, we've also got the pay-as-you-go withholding, so the tax and the super that we need to pay for our staff. But in this cycle, we're ignoring completely our other overheads as well. So our rent, our insurances, all of those sorts of things. So they could be pulling out of the spoke of this wheel at irregular times as well. Once we've finished the work, finished the job, and we're going to raise an invoice, we then raise that invoice and wait for the client to pay. So some businesses are really lucky. So our retailers generally will have everything sitting there on the shelf, and then as soon as the customer picks it up off the shelf, they'll pay for it and then they'll walk out the door. So the difference between the actual selling and the receiving the cash is within moments. Whereas for other businesses, especially more labor predominant businesses, it might be that you raise an invoice and then get paid 7, 12, 14, 30 or 90 or forever until you get paid. So we want to reduce that amount of time that our sale doesn't get paid. So our invoice that gets raised gets paid, which is reducing our debtor days. So our debtor days are the amount of days between invoice being raised and the debtor or our customer actually paying us. Once they've paid us, that converts back to cash. So in some areas, in some businesses, the cycle between sales and cash is immediate, and some businesses, the cycle between sales and cash can be months. How can you reduce that down? And we'll get into this in another topic later on. But what are those things that we can do to really squish this circle nice and tight and make the money come around and round really quickly, rather than it being a huge big circle that we're always waiting for? So between ordering and receiving stock, paying for the stock, doing the actual work, invoicing the work. So sometimes there's that lag between finishing the work and invoicing the work and then getting paid for it. For every single step, there's definitely ways that you can squish it all down and get your cash cycle really skinny, really tight, and moving really, really fast. In the rest of the workbook, we've got some examples. So what type of business are you? Are you that selling labor and time type of business, or are you more of a retailer? Or do you have a mix? Do you have some goods on hand, some materials on hand that you're then holding for a particular labor job that you'll sell at that particular time? How long do those things stay on your shelf? How quickly do you invoice between when you actually finish the job and when you invoice it out? So I've got the jargon in there. So the WIP days, how long does it take to start and finish the job? Debtor days being how long between the invoice date and when you physically get paid. And then the lockup days, how many days from that point of first inquiry all the way through to getting paid. So that's the whole big circle. What are those numbers in your business? Luckily for us, well, not luckily, for us, there's a couple of different ways we can calculate it, but mostly it's using calculations that are in the back of your workbook under the calculating KPIs section. So there's a little formula on there, and I'll do a specific video for each of these later on so that you can run through and work out exactly where your business is sitting, what your numbers are, so that you can then track them on a regular basis and see if you can improve them. Now, the questions on the workbook regarding the cash flow cycle. Is your business cash stressed right now? Yes or no? Do you want your business to make a profit? Well, hopefully that's why you're here. Do you take money out of the business in order to live? Yes or no? When we get to it, this will be the owner's pay example, owner's pay module. Does your business have a credit card, an overdraft, or loans that you need to repay? If you do, that's quite okay at this stage. Profit First says that we want to reduce the amount of loans and money that we owe to other people. So this will be one of the things that we factor into your business when we're looking at overheads and operating expenses. Your loan repayments are a part of that. Question number 8, do you have a budget for your business? Now, a budget is a plan. A budget doesn't have to be strict. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. I like to do, now that I've been doing Profit First for a couple of years, I like to do a Profit First budget, which is these are the percentages I have. If I earn this amount of income, this is how much money I'll have for these particular things. And then we can fit our costs to our buckets rather than working through what is that we're spending and moving forward from there. Number 9, do you have a cash flow forecast for your business? Yes or no? Don't worry if you don't. It's absolutely fine. And number 10, before we move on to the next module, are there any changes that you'd like to make to your business in the short term? Whether that's staffing or products or services that you're selling, whether it's changing locations, or are you moving? What else? Anything else? What changes would you like to make in your business in the short term? Thanks for watching this module, and think about ways that you can start to be more intentional with your money and intentional with your cash flow. So what areas can you squeeze down on your cash flow, on your cash cycle, to make your cash flow run quicker?